Do you ever wonder what would happen if...
If you give a dad a podcast.
I'm what you call a nerdy fan. I nerd out at this stuff, hardcore.
You'll hear me talk about anime on here. You'll hear me talk about Power Rangers. You'll hear me talk about wrestling on here.
Okay.
I had an axe handle with a Twisted Tea on it. It was right after that Twisted Tea video went viral. And man, they went out and grabbed it and smacked a dude in the head with it. It was so...
That's great. I'd like to think of this podcast as a nostalgia moment for me. It's a show where I can talk about whatever I want.
I'm a human animal chiropractor. There was a picture of me. It looked like I was on the side of a ramen box over in China. But
So I took my kids with me to Comic-Con.
I thought that was really cool.
Well, I don't know if my wife should listen to this podcast. We'll cut that part out.
You hope. Be like, and then Robert said this.
If You Give a Dad a Podcast. Available now on all podcasting platforms.
Did you ever wonder what could have been with the AWA had things gone differently? Had their fortunes gone differently? Had certain wrestlers not left and perhaps more money would have been at the disposal of the Gagnes? Well, wonder no further. You can go to Brad Drake's YouTube channel and experience the 1987 Supermod for yourself, as Brad Drake starts off in May 1987 along with Greg Gagne, Baron von Raschke, Vern Gagne himself, Nick Bockwinkel, Larry Zbyszko, Kurt Hennig, and a slew of others as he plays and saves the AWA.
Hello everyone, this is Brian Ferguson, the host of Bumps and Thumps, the talk of wrestling. I want to tell you about a new podcast out called Falls Count Anywhere. It is a classic pro wrestling podcast that brings you the legends of wrestling with true wrestling fans Chris DiCarlo and Charlie Turner. They bring on guests that are legends in this business, as well as wrestlers of today, promoters, referees, you name it. They have them on there, folks. And I encourage you to listen to them. If you're on YouTube, watch them. They drop every Saturday. They have their podcast. They drop it in the afternoon. So look forward to that podcast coming out. Falls Count Anywhere podcast with Chris DiCarlo and Charlie Turner. Folks, you will not be disappointed. I guarantee it. And enjoy the podcast. Hey everyone, this is Brian Ferguson, the host of Bumps and Thumps, the talk of wrestling. We are on here today because of you, viewers and watchers like you. In order to continue the podcast, we need to monetize our YouTube channel so we can get guests on that require financial compensation. That's where viewers like you come in. If you subscribe today, we can get that number up to 1,000. And as an incentive, the 1,000th subscriber will receive a free t-shirt just like this and receive a book from the legendary George Shire on his Minnesota Golden Age of Wrestling, from Vern Gagne to the Road Warriors, signed by George Shire himself. So please get on there, tell your friends to subscribe today. And when you hit that 1,000 mark, you're going to get a t-shirt like this. I'm going to reach out to you. You're going to be coming on the show as a guest and receive that book, The Minnesota's Golden Age of Wrestling, from Vern Gagne to the Road Warriors, signed by George Shire. So get on there today, subscribe, and please enjoy the podcast. Joining another edition of Bumps and Thumps, the talk of wrestling. I'm your host, Brian Ferguson. My guest today is known as the manager of champions. He is currently a manager and wrestles in Mid-States Wrestling and other independent promotions in Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, and Kansas. I want to welcome Mr. Stephen E. Stephen, thanks for coming on today.
Brian, thank you for having me, man. I mean, think about it. We could be anywhere else in the world right now, man, and we're right here doing this podcast, man. I love it, man. I appreciate you having me on.
I appreciate you taking my offer. I really appreciate it. You know, I was at the Mid-States Wrestling event in the Relic Center in Springfield about a week and a half ago, and your match with the Space Cowboy Jason Jones was pretty brutal. I mean, you guys weren't holding back, either one of you.
No. A lot of animosity built up over the years, and it was about time we were able to take that out on each other.
Yeah, it was
32 minutes is what we went from bell to bell. So
yeah,
that's pretty awesome. Pretty awesome.
It was
a very fun experience.
And it wasn't a dull moment.
No,
I mean,
no.
I was there, and sometimes in some of those matches they get kind of lull or there's a bit of a space, but you guys, and I know there's a lot of history with you two.
Yeah. Well, in the world of wrestling, it's all about a feeling. You go out there, and man, if it feels good, keep going. And everything we did, we were getting such a good reaction. And at the end of the day, it's like, let's just keep going and keep moving and moving. And we did, man. And I felt like you're never going to get a 5-star match out of me. It's just not possible. It's just not possible. But man, as most people saw on Saturday, I can take pretty good butt kicking.
Yeah, I mean, for 32 minutes, it didn't seem like that long. It seemed like about 10, but you're right. It was because I was there.
Yeah.
And from the time you guys come out of the curtain until you left.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that I think it's safe to say that the fans got what they wanted.
Oh, yeah.
That had been building up for so many years, and to lose was something, because that's something that I've never felt. I had always been undefeated. Now, given there were certain circumstances that happened that caused my record to remain untarnished, but it wasn't something that I was used to, so to speak. And it felt right. It felt, the timing was definitely right, man. The storytelling that me and the Space Cowboy had done for, the last 6 months was second to none. I mean, with Attila Khan coming in and doing that with Alan Jefferson, they put a really, really, really solid video package together for that, and really helped sell that storyline to being down in Harrison, Arkansas, a couple of weeks prior to the street fight, where we took that old George Jones autographed guitar and busted over the Space Cowboy's head. It's just good old school storylines. And that's what we were doing, is we were just telling a story, an old school story. And I come from an era that if it's not broken, don't try to fix it. And and too many people nowadays, I think, are trying to reinvent the wheel, and we don't need to do that.
No, I 100% agree. Your guys' Mid-States Wrestling, I've always, every time I go to a card, I don't have a bad experience. That's from the time I come in the door, at the door with your ticket people, to the concession stand, to the wrestlers prior to the matches. You're all out there greeting, meet and greet. And I was telling Jason this before, that you guys you're not lurching on and saying, hey, buy my stuff. No, you come out, you'll take a picture. You don't have to worry about, hey, you take a picture. You bet I'll take a picture.
Take a picture. Absolutely.
And that's what draws me, because you know what? Most of the time now, and especially the big ones, you got to pay for a picture. You got to pay for this.
Right.
When you say I'll take a picture and I look at your stuff, I go, oh, okay, well, you know what? You're not lurching on me. I'm gonna buy your T-shirt. I'm gonna buy this picture, and if you'd sign it for me, you don't charge me an extra $10 because you signed it.
Right.
That's the best part.
I tell you what, being on the independents, there's a certain level of hunger that these guys have, and I don't know very many people that aren't people pleasers, whether they're heel, face. We're always there to please the people. I don't want to sound cliche, but I like to think that when we have a show, if we can take somebody out of the problems of the world for 2 hours and invite them into our world, and entertain them for them 2 hours, man, that's a job well done by us.
Yeah.
And you know, in today's day and age with the economy, with fuel prices, you know, I appreciate everybody that comes out and buys a ticket to see us, because you know, they could be, you know, when you think about it, a family of 4, you know, coming out to the wrestling show, that's a pretty good investment. And, you know, and you want to make them feel welcome. You want to make them feel like, wow, this is an atmosphere that I want to be a part of. You know, the guys are, you know, listen, man, I growing up, I can remember going to an independent show, and you know, it was in Exeter, California, and I was sitting there, and the wrestlers were coming from 100 yards probably, so they were bringing them in on golf carts, and they would drop them off about, you know, 20-30 feet away from the ring, and then they would make their you know, their little entry or whatever. Well, anyways, one guy walked by and I kind of razzed him or whatever, and he said, put on some weight and get in the ring. You know, I couldn't tell you who that was, but you know, that made my night right there. So if we're out there and you know, and we just have to interact, and that's one thing with the Stephen E character that you're always going to get. You're always going to get that fan interaction, whether it's a look, whether it's a point. You know, I'm real big on expressions and points and looks and stuff like that. You know, it makes you feel like you're part of the show, you know, and it's such a good feeling, you know, that to know that you know, I mean, you know, here I am, the notorious, nefarious, however you want to say it, and when I go out there and sit at that table, the kids come up, they want, you know, they want to talk to me for a second, they want, you know, a picture, and you know, or a T-shirt or a picture or something like that. You know, to me that's a huge pat on the back, because that lets me know that man, we're doing what we're supposed to be doing.
And I'll tell you too, it doesn't cost an arm and a leg to go to your shows.
No.
And your prices, as far as even your merchandise, isn't outrageous. I mean, you pay, if you want VIP, I think it's $20 and or 10, I can't remember. But I know it's not very expensive. It's not like you're going to, you know, you go to the other ones, the big ones there, you're paying $60-70 just for
per ticket.
Yeah,
you know, let's be honest, Brian, you're paying more for the service charge on the dang ticket than you are, you know, than you are the actual, you know, price of admission to get into one of our shows. Because I want to say general admission's $15, and even at general admission, there's not a bad seat in the house.
No.
There's not a bad seat in the house, and you know, and here in Springfield and in Harrison, Mid-States is becoming a pretty hot ticket. You know, it's selling out. You know, show after show. Last show was a sellout as well. I think we're on number 13, maybe 14. And I noticed that the shows down at Harrison are getting a lot bigger, and it's a pleasure to be able to say that I work for Mid-States Wrestling. Let's just say that, and I've been there since the beginning. So
good. Oh, that's amazing.
That's what makes it even more. Makes it more awesome. I can probably count on one hand how many shows I've missed. You know, with Mid-States.
That's great. That's wonderful to hear. You know, he's a good guy, Jason. He's a promoter, and you know, you guys put on such a great show, and I'm not just saying that because you're on here, but you know, I've been to probably 4 or 5 now since I've come to know about it, in Harrison and in Springfield, and they're always, like I said, top notch. It's always sold out. I mean, every time I'm there, I think I buy my tickets early because I'm afraid if I get to the door, I'm not going to get in.
Absolutely.
And I don't want.
I tell you what, Brian. You know, we had an opportunity to work with the Kansas Special Olympics about a month and a half back, and I got the daunting task of picking Lex Luger up at the airport. You know, twist my arm. No, I don't know about that, but anyways, getting him in there and talking with him, he was 100% impressed. You know, he was asking us, you know, well, what are you drawing? And you know, I was 600 people. You know, and he just, you know, he was at a loss. He said good independent companies are drawing 200. So you know, that kind of stroked the ego a little bit and let me know that man, we're on to something. And as far as, you know, promotions here in Missouri, I don't think that there's a faster rising promotion than Mid-States Wrestling here, you know, in the state. You know, I mean, I'll put it up against anybody. any any company, that's on the independents, and some of them that may be considered the top 2 or top 5 promotions in the country. The production value is just something that just, I mean, it looks great.
Yeah.
The backdrops that are there for the fans to get behind are just excellent. I mean, it looks so good.
Yeah.
They don't spare any expense when it comes to the production of that show, and I think that it's pretty evident.
Yeah. Oh, definitely, without a doubt. I couldn't agree with you more. I want to talk about you in particular a little bit, Stephen E. Let's talk about a little bit. You're from California.
Yep.
Originally. Talk about how growing up in California and how from California you ended up here in Springfield, Missouri.
Shoot, I tell you what, I'm born in California, a little city called Exeter, California. It's just a little little dot on the map. I think there's probably 15, maybe 20,000 people, if that, there. Went to high school. I actually lived in a little community called Cameron Creek, which was adjacent to Visalia and Farmersville. So we were kind of just a little community in between, but all of my friends were from Farmersville, and I went to school in Visalia, so I was kind of not separated, but I had two groups of friends, the Visalia friends and the Farmersville friends. And anyways, growing up as a kid, I can remember, as early as, like 11, 12, already being, a fan of professional wrestling, because of course with the first name of Steven, a bunch of my buddies back home, they would always call me Lombardi. So,
Lombardi,
so they would always call me Lombardi. So that was kind of my nickname, growing up or whatever. And, with certain groups of friends, but, gosh, grew up a fan of the sport, loved it, loved just every minute I could, anytime I could get in front of a television and watch it, I was just immediately drawn to it, I don't know when I realized that what was going on, but it still didn't matter. It didn't matter to me. The theatrics and just I was, for whatever reason, I was naturally drawn to the heels, of course.
Of course.
So growing up as a kid, like Ted DiBiase, huge influence, of course. Bobby Heenan, huge influence. Being able to watch those guys and become fans of them was huge. I attended my first WWE show in Fresno, California. It was Selland Arena, and I didn't know it at the time, but it was a television taping for WWE. They did a challenge. So I don't know if you remember WWF Challenge and WWF Superstars.
Yeah.
So it was they did 2 and 2. They take 2 hours of Superstars and 2 hours of Challenge, and then the main event was Hulk Hogan versus One Man Gang, which I'll come back and talk about that in a little bit. But
sure.
So went and watched that. The notable things were Ted DiBiase coming out and making a kid do push-ups. It's like I got to see that made air, of course. The big thing that was kind of the showcase was the Bam Bam Bigelow contract. That was the final, the finals for the Bam Bam Bigelow contract. And of course, I believe Slick was in the running. He thought that he won the contract, and all of a sudden, everybody got introduced to Sir Oliver Humperdinck, and and he went on to manage him. But got to do that. That was my first. That was my first show that I had ever been to. My first wrestling show. And going to that show, it just had so much influence on on my childhood growing up, because man, I just always, now you got to remember back in the 80s, pay-per-views weren't a thing. Closed circuit TV was kind of a thing, but I mean, like when you only have 13 screens across the nation, it's like I grandma's not gonna put me in the car and take me up to Sacramento, to watch that. But watching that live really made a big impression on me. And then of course, you know, as I got older, you know, I you know, became a kid and started, you know, seeing girls and dating and whatnot. And my son's mom and me, we had him. I was 17, she was 18, so I was a very young man having a child. And
Yeah.
we you know, just like most 17 and 18-year-old couples, you know, we had our issues and separated for a little bit, and she moved back to Arkansas with her parents. And about 6 months later, you know, I had figured that, you know, this was enough. I needed to be around my son at a young age, at a very young age. My grandmother was a huge influence on me, and I can remember, you know, her having that talk, like, you know, this is big. You got you know, you
Yeah.
got to start worrying about him now. And you know, that kind of stuck with me. So I ended up going back to Arkansas, and lo and behold, go to a independent wrestling show in Arkansas and bump into a guy that you're wearing his t-shirt right now.
Yeah, Space Cowboy. Yeah.
Space Cowboy Jason Jones. And you know, the rest is kind of, well, no, I guess the rest isn't history. Let me kind of elaborate a little bit. I had
Sure.
met up with Jason. There was a show that Jason was still in high school. You know, I think he was probably, you know, 16. But in Harrison, you know, when you talked about pro wrestling, there was only one guy in town that you know, like, if you were a pro wrestling fan, then you know, you gravitated toward the other pro wrestling fans. And Jason was a big pro wrestling fan. And
Yeah.
you know, we just got together and talked at a show that he was running music on one day. And you know, the promoter of that show that you know, that was you know, was running there at the youth center there in Harrison. I got in contact with him and started talking about going in and doing some training with him. And you know, luckily for me, I could see kind of through the hustle, I guess you could say. Because
Yeah.
I remember going out to his house. I drove out to his house, and you know, we're you know, I signed some paperwork. And you know, we're like, okay. And he goes, okay. And you know, and mind you, we're in a trailer. So we go into like one room in the trailer, and he's got like a mattress on the floor, and that's like what we're supposed to work out on and whatnot. And you know, I remember it probably, I don't know, 30-40 minutes into this training session, you know, he kind of goes, well, I think you've just about got it. You know, what do you think about working the main event, you know, in my next show? And I'm like, dude, you're absolutely crazy, man. But you know, one thing that I've always had going for me is size. And,
Yeah.
and you know, if you know me in person, or if you know me in real life,
Yeah.
then you'll know I'm a legitimate 6'5",
Yeah, you're a big guy.
260 pounds. I'm a big guy.
Yeah.
And I think at the time I was, you know, 6'4", 6'5", you know, about 280. And he said, we'll put you in a mask and put you in like a like a overalls, you know, kind of like, and he put you in the main event. He said, oh man, I said, oh no, that's not gonna work. And so I put some distance in between me and him. And you know, Jason had got in with some guys out in the Fayetteville area, and started working out with them and announcing for them and working through them. And
Yeah.
you know, lo and behold, a couple of years later, you know, Space Cowboy has a freaking wrestling ring in his basement, you know, in his house. Have you heard that story yet?
I haven't. Let's hear it.
Oh man, well, there's not much of it. There's not much of a story. You know, his ex-wife owns a wrestling ring nowadays, I'm sure. But you know, yeah, you know, how awesome is that? You know, to be, you know, 21, 22 years old and you know, living your dream with a wrestling ring under, you know, in your basement. I mean, it was in his basement, you know, for God's sakes. And so we could go over there and train and take a beat and bump around and stuff like that. And you know, and yeah, it worked out. And you know, of course, once I went through, you know, some training and stuff like that, I decided pretty quick, you know, that man, I don't know if I could take the bumps and the thumps, so to speak, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, it you know, it's a lot harder than people think, man. Let me
Yeah.
tell you that. You know, I challenge anybody just to run the ropes for 5 minutes straight and tell me that they're all right. They're not going to be all right, especially if you've never done it. You know, it's a certain level of conditioning that it takes to be able to get in there and to do what those guys do. And I'm not afraid to say that I found my niche in wrestling, and it wasn't as a wrestler. But getting with Jason very early on afforded me a lot of opportunities to go to the other shows and to go to shows that Jason was working on and talk to other promoters and meet other people. I mean, that's where I met people like Craig Kiesman, Michael Berry. I've got a great Michael Berry story. The first time I ever met Michael Berry was with a company out in Joplin called Midwest Wrestling Federation. Midwest Wrestling Federation was hot for what it was, and it had a good couple of year run. But most notably, that was the company that gave Michael Berry the opportunity to become Michael Berry. Yeah, he was trained by a guy named Brandon Tripod and Christopher Martinez, I believe. Maybe Chris wasn't part of his training, but I know Tripod was, and they ran that company. It was a great company, and I remember being over. We went, and I was more or less just a straight ring announcer, just a ring announcer, and Brandon Tripod, who was one of the bookers over there, had come up to me and said, "Hey, we want you to sit at, ringside and do commentary." And this was, I think it was, I hate doing ringside commentary whenever it's over the speakers. I hate it. I feel like it takes away from what's going on inside the ring. But nonetheless, I went ahead and did it, and I got myself over as a heel fairly quick. And I was approached by them saying, "Hey, I want you to be the general manager, of the company, and you'll be a heel and yada yada yada." That was the very first bit of overexposure. I think that when I go into a show and they got me coming out 4 or 5 different times, I'm like, oh man, overexposure. But at the time I ran with it. I did it and had a good time doing it, and it allowed me to develop the character that you guys see and enjoy today.
Oh, yeah, because I remember the first show I went to for Mid States, you were a commentator and a manager. So you'd come out in the beginning and they all boo you, and then you put on your headset and start talking a little bit. And I remember you getting up, get one of your guys. I mean, it's great. And that's something go ahead, Steve. I'm sorry.
That's an old throwback to like Bobby Heenan. When Bobby Heenan was at the comment, he would get up and, "I gotta go, Monsoon. I'll be back." And he'd go and handle business and come back. There's so many similarities to the Stephen E character and Bobby Heenan. If you look at it, people always ask, man, especially with me being a manager, and I feel like I'm one of the better managers in the business right now, and I'm not taking anything away from anybody else, but I just feel like I've hit a good stride right now. But people's always, the number one question, who's the best manager in wrestling? Who's the number one man? Well, everybody knows who the number one manager is. That's not even really a discussion. The real discussion is who is number 2 and 3 and 4. Hands down, Bobby Heenan. I mean, we can start filling in the blanks with, the Jim Cornettes and the Mouth of the South and, and the J.J. Dillons and Slicks and all those other guys. But, at the end of the day, Bobby Heenan, bar none, is the best manager of all time.
Yeah. I can remember as a kid, he was up north for a number of years. I'm from Wisconsin. He was in the AWA.
Yeah.
And he was the manager for Nick Bockwinkel. It was the Bobby Heenan family. And I absolutely could not stand Bobby Heenan. He did his job very well. They all did back then.
Yes.
But he could wrestle, and he could manage, and he could broadcast, just like you.
Yeah.
And I know you say you learned that from him, and I can tell because, folks, if you're watching, you can't really see Stephen E because he's set up, but when you're in person with him, he is a big guy. I mean, I've seen him in person at events when we were in Las Vegas at the Cauliflower Alley Club reunion. You're a big guy,
man. Was Brian? Was that not a great time?
Oh, Cauliflower was great.
Gosh, man, I can't. I've always wanted to join. I went ahead and joined as a lifetime member this last year. And every time that I would think about it,
Mhm.
you know, it would already be like, you know, because I want to say that they usually did it in like April, May, didn't they? Wasn't it earlier in the year?
Yeah.
And they moved it to August, September.
Yeah.
But it seemed like whenever they would do it before, I would just miss it, and I'm like, well, I'll just I'll join. You know, I'll join, and just never think about it. Well, I started working for a gentleman, a legend actually, Herb Simmons, and Herb Simmons is part of Herb Simmons is part of the board of directors over there, and he'll put reminders for people, and I thought, you know what, man, like I'm glad that Herb is putting reminders, because now I have something that's reminding me, like, every couple of weeks, about the Cauliflower Alley, and I can't even explain how good of a time that I had going back there and just meeting everybody, meeting with you guys, seeing all the legends. I've got some great stories that I mean, like, how many people can say that they went to Elvis Presley's, Westgate, suite. Not only go there, but go there with Jerry Lawler and Jimmy Hart. You know, I mean, like, how awesome is that? Let me tell you, we're up there, right? And of course, Jason called somebody, a publicist, over for the Westgate, which is the old International where Elvis stayed. And of course, with the hype of the movie that just came out, there's he's kind of trending, I guess is the word. Well, Jason gets a hold of somebody over there, a publicist or somebody, and says, "Hey, we're in town. We're here with the Cauliflower Alley Club. We've got the King of Memphis, Jerry, Lawler, and the Mouth South, Jimmy Hart." And they said, "Well, come on down, guys. Meet us at 9:30 at the Elvis statue at the in the casino." So we go down there, and man, it was so surreal. See, just being able to go on stage and going into the green room, where Elvis stood. And then going up to the 31st floor and checking that out, that was awesome. But what popped me more than anything out of that whole experience was the girl that is taking us on our tour. Jerry Lawler's talking to her, and Jerry, she says something about Elvis Presley's brother-in-law, David Stanley, is here at the hotel, and Jerry like looks at him and says, "David Stanley's here. Get him on the phone. Let him know that the King's here. He'll come running down here." And anyways, a couple of times throughout the tour, which was about 45 minutes an hour, a couple of times, Jerry would mention something about about David Stanley, and finally we get down to their not telemarketing, but kind of like their timeshare, timeshare room.
Yeah.
And anyway, so we see David Stanley, and the girl walks up to David Stanley and goes, "David, do you know, or Mr. Stanley, do you know who this guy is?" And he looks at Lawler and just says, "Well," and like pulls his glasses down and looks at, "That looks like the King, Jerry Lawler, and that looks like Jimmy Hart. Well, boys, how that, just," and it was like, they had a 20-minute, conversation. And, we get away from them, and Jerry says, "I didn't know how that was going to go. I married David Stanley's ex-wife." So one of Jerry's ex-wives was, and it was awesome because like the way that they were promoting him, David Stanley, Elvis Presley's, and big, I don't know, 72 font or as big as they could get it. And then, and then just in little tiny, like parentheses, Elvis's, brother-in-law.
Yeah.
It's like, something else.
I that was my first time at Cauliflower, and I absolutely had a great time. Interacting with you guys. I mean, I interacted with you before, but when we all got together, downstairs or wherever, and we just chit-chatted. Right.
Yeah.
It was so much fun. It was so relaxing, and so, just being around people and talking.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it, and
I look forward to it, man. It's gonna be something that I put on my calendar every year. That I can afford to go, boy. And I mean, come on, we're talking Las Vegas. It's not it's not an expensive flight. Everybody can go.
And the hotel room wasn't bad either for that area and everything.
The great thing about that is literally you just never knew you were going to run into.
No, you're right.
I mean, like, it's like oh shoot, there's Ricky, Ricky Morton, oh shoot, there's Robert Gibson, or Jimmy Hart, Jerry Lawler, Sam Houston everybody was there, Andrew Anderson, Kevin Sullivan, JBL, got to drink a couple beers with JBL at the bar there at the Plaza. That was pretty awesome, and I had a good time, man. I look forward to going back.
And what's great too, Steven, is that when you interacted with those guys, even the days they had their little areas, it didn't cost you 70, 80 bucks. It was $20. I'll take a picture with you. I'll sign a picture for you, and I'll sign whatever you have with you, a couple items.
And knowing that you're supporting some of those guys, because some of those guys are way past their prime, some of them are still working hard on the indies, but this might be one of their only ways to be able to get a little bit of income in, and more kudos to them. I would gladly sit down and give a legend $20, $40, for a picture and an autograph, because it just, man, I mean, like, I couldn't tell you how many people, because me and Jason, when we were back there, we had the daunting task of getting Jimmy from place to place, and I couldn't tell you how many people come up to Jimmy Hart and Jerry Lawler, for that matter, when we were walking around the strip with him, that would just come up and say, man, like, thank you for all the memories, you made my childhood great. And, that was awesome, man. That was awesome. And just like for me, to think that I might have just a little bit of that, on somebody, man, man, that hits you in the gut, makes you feel good.
Yeah, that's awesome. Let's talk a little bit, if we could, talking about you hanging around some legends. So during your time, 20 plus years in the business, you talked about Lex Luger, you talked about Jimmy, Jerry. Is there anybody else that you've interacted with, either when they come to Mid-States for a promo, or you're doing a charity event of some kind, that really just stuck out to you, like, this guy or this person's a really good person, and kind of teaches you a little bit, give you some pointers? Like, you talk about Bobby Heenan, Jimmy Hart.
Yeah.
Is there anybody that really stuck out to you? That
there's a couple of things that stick out to me, and we talked about Fresno, California earlier. My first wrestling show. Lo and behold, my first wrestling show that I really was ever a part of, I was the music man. I was the guy that had the daunting task of making sure that everybody's music was playing and whatnot. And we had some pretty high tech gear. I think we had a boom box with cassettes, and I had to put the cassettes in and hold the microphone to the, I mean, this was some high end production, right? But the first show that I ever had the privilege of working on, the main event was One Man Gang versus Kevin Northcutt. So of course, after the show, we did all the business, like during the show, went back and got, weights, heights, all that stuff and whatnot for the announcer. And then when we were done with the show, I just went up and I said to him, I said, hey, I said, it's awesome to be able to work on the show with you. 10 years ago or so, I saw you at Salon Arena with Hulk Hogan, and he said to me, he goes, man, who would have thought, 10 years later that we'd be in Harrison, Arkansas, working a show, working on the same. And I just, to me, that meant a lot. But, when you talk about people that I've met and that have made big impressions on me, man, Danny Hodge, nicest man in the business. Bobby Eaton, I can't say Danny Hodge was the nicest man in professional wrestling, because I don't think anybody would disagree with me when I say Bobby Eaton was the most kind, generous person. I got to spend a lot of time around Bobby. I got to work a bunch of shows with Danny Hodge. I got to work with Skandar Akbar. He actually managed me back in 2008. And when when I was the mid-states heavyweight champion. Actually, he got to manage me, and that was pretty cool. But
Yeah.
one of my great buddies, man, who I always look to for advice, of course, is Space Cowboy. He's somebody that I look up to, and that, if I ever had any questions, I could ask him. But of course, man, I mean, the list is long. Another guy that I look at and am very privileged and honored to know is Trevor Murdoch. He's somebody that anytime I call him, he picks his phone up. So if that
That's
tells
great.
you anything, yeah.
No, I've seen him in person when he worked in St. Louis in Troy with the World League when he was the champ there a few years, 5 or 6 years ago now.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, he was in the ring with this kid. I felt so bad for this kid because he was getting whooped. I mean, when he got done, he had just marks all over his chest and his back. And but he came back afterwards, and I talked to him. He goes, I'm breaking into the business, and this is how it's got to get done, and I'm willing to take my my bumps. And I was like,
well, man, when it comes to those chops, man, Trevor, he's no slack. No slacker.
He's not. No. So yeah, I want to tell you too that I've heard this from many people. Most of the people that are heels in the business are actually some of the nicest people outside that you'll ever meet. And
I would 100% agree with you, man.
I mean, like, you're a very nice guy. My wife, when we were there last time, she's like, I can't see him as a heel before you got out there. I was like, honey, just watch and pay attention. You can flip a switch.
Yeah.
And
no, that's it right there, Brian. It's a switch that gets flipped. That I just I don't know. I don't know. The best gimmicks are always an extension of your personality, and God forbid that be true, because if that's the case, I must be the biggest butthole in the world. But for all intents and purposes, I go out there and I do I like I said, it's a character that I've developed for many years. That's not that's not the everyday walk around guy that you get. But when the lights are dark and the smoke is out there and the music hits, boy, it's something else. And I feel bad sometimes coming to the back, because you'll have those kids that will they'll have their hands out waiting to high five somebody, and they may be new wrestling fans and they don't quite get it, and of course I'll walk by like I'm gonna hit their hand and pull back or something, and I feel bad because I'm like, oh man, but I'm a heel, man.
You got to do the part.
Yeah.
Let's ask you this: have you ever worked for WWE, AEW, in any type of capacity, either as a fill-in?
I have never worked for either one of them, and it's not because I haven't had opportunities to do so. Okay. Back in like 2007, 2008, WWE came to Kansas City, and they were, I believe it was a Raw or a SmackDown, one of the two. It was one of their big shows, but they needed extras, and and of course at the time I had my wrestling license and stuff like that. The only problem that I ran into is that they wanted everybody clean shaven, and you really don't get that. You really don't get that with me. You really don't get that. And they've let up on that, because every now and then I'll see some extras, and I look and I'm like, I got a big old long beard. Okay. But back in 07, 08, or at least for whatever they needed us to do back then, they needed me clean shaven, and it wasn't something that I was willing to do. Although I look back, there's a handful of things in wrestling that I regret not doing. Yeah. That's probably one of them. I could have done some stuff with TNA, and I can't remember what it was. I certainly didn't big time them. The opportunity came up to go do security for one of their house shows up in Independence or somewhere, and Nah, I think I'll hold off. On that.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I don't even really remember if I was busy, but another one of those regrets.
Yeah.
But no, I've not had an opportunity to work for the big guys yet.
Okay. So heat wise, I know you're a heel, but and you don't have to mention any names. Have you ever had any real heat with anybody outside of the ring that you've got to work with them in the ring for whatever because you guys are? But I mean, not very few, but I've had a couple on here that say, yeah, I've had heat. I don't want to know names. I just want to. Sometimes it happens. Have you ever had? No.
And you're right. It does happen. I'm such a likable person.
You are.
And Brian, I'm a nice guy. Like I said, it's a switch. If I walked around as Stephen E 24 hours, I can imagine that I'd probably have a lot of people that wouldn't like me. But for the most part, I think I'm a pretty likable guy, and everybody kind of falls into that. I can remember telling Space Cowboy a number of years ago. He won the was the most popular wrestler. And I won most hated wrestler, and I just remember thinking like, we could, let's just trade, but no, man, I try to stay out of politics.
Yeah.
I try to, and that's where where the heat will initially come from, is people politicking, people doing things backstage, getting in somebody's ear. I just try to stay away from all that stuff. I'm there to do a job. The promoter wants me to do something. I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. If somebody doesn't like it, then take it up with the promoter. I can remember years ago working for Midwest Wrestling Federation. I remember they had a meeting, and they brought me in, and I kind of moved fairly quickly to like the top of the card, I guess, to the main eventers, so to speak. And there was a couple of people that I don't know, I don't know names, but they just they voiced their opinions to the promoters, and and the promoter put them all in their place. Like, didn't say my name per se, but I had a pretty good feeling that they were upset, because I was kind of an outsider coming in type thing. I wasn't I wasn't coming from their little wrestling school, and I didn't come from their circle of friends, so to speak. And anyways, the promoter put them in their place, said, if you guys want a spot that's more desired, then earn it. Everybody that's in their spot right now is there because they deserve to be there. And and that's really the thing. I do my best, man, to not try to rub people wrong. I'm very polite. I always shake hands, and I'll always stick around to shake hands, and say goodbyes. I think that's just the etiquette, and some people aren't like that anymore, believe it or not. I mean, it's just the way that it is, and I don't know if they're just superstars, or if they just don't know the etiquette. I'm not sure, but it still happens. But I try to disengage from any of that negativity.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I've interacted with you, and you're a heck of a nice guy, and So, all right, so manager of champions, Stephen E. Is there some events coming up that you're going to be involved with in the next few months? Thanksgiving's coming up, but Christmas. Tell us a little about that.
Earlier when you were talking about some of the companies that I work for, you left one of them out, and I wanted to go ahead and give them a quick mention, because
please,
it's a great company. It's Herb Simmons up at SICW. I am the manager of Devastation Incorporated up there, and it's so much fun working with those guys, working with Attila Khan, Jake Prater, Peyton Ayers just joined my group last week on television. So a lot of big things. Peyton Ayers was the kid that played D'Lo Brown in Young Rock, so that was pretty cool. But every Sunday night they've got a show that they put on Roku and YouTube and stuff like that. And if anybody's looking for some old school wrestling action, man, SICW Explosion. is where you can watch that on,
all right. Well,
on
that's
Sundays at 8:00. But but beyond that, I'm always up in Illinois working for Herb Simmons, Jason Jones. We're going to be we're back in Springfield on December 18th at Relics. We're going to be down in Harrison on December 3rd. I know that I think it's December 10th that I'm in Illinois for SICW, and I believe that there is a WFC show in between there as well.
Wrestling for a Cause.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm staying pretty busy. Pretty busy.
So you're a busy man.
That's the only way to be, man.
That's the manager, right? You got to take care of people.
I tell you, I'm very blessed, man. I'm very blessed to be in a position in life where I can go and do this kind of stuff. I love going out and entertaining the fans. I love going out and entertaining the people that come to the shows. I just love it, man. I love what I do, and I could do it 100 times over, and I wouldn't change anything.
Yeah. No, you're great, great manager. You do it so well. A few months back when Khan was in Springfield with you, I love the character in him. Again, I met him in Vegas.
Yeah.
Outside of that, he is a heck of a nice guy.
Yeah.
When he gets, when that curtain comes up, boy, it's like the switch flips.
I tell you what, man, we don't. Whenever I'm up in Illinois and we're talking about Khan for his promos, you'll hear me reference him as the most dangerous wrestler in North America, and that guy is something else. That guy is.
Yeah.
Man, it's something when we're at the banquet. Now, did you go to the banquets for the alley? When we're at the banquets and they say something about Herb, and they say, well, if you don't, if you don't join Cauliflower Alley, then we're gonna send Attila,
I remember that.
Here we are, in front of Rey Mysterio, JBL, Conan, all the Memphis legends, and they made mention of Attila Khan, so he's something else, and that man, I tell you what, the fans at Mid-States are wanting to see more of Attila Khan.
I'd love him to come back down and wrestle your buddy Jason Jones and or whoever. It would the Smoking Ace, the current champion.
Oh man,
that'd be a great match, I think.
Yeah. I tell you what, man, he's on Luke Langley's on another level right now, man.
Yeah, he is incredible.
He is just. I can't say enough good things about him, man. And I've been fortunate enough to watch him evolve into what he is today, because he wasn't always what he is today. That's a perfect example of getting in there and working hard to see your dreams come true. And Luke 12 years ago was a lot like a lot of the independent guys. He was a smaller guy. He didn't he wasn't bulked up or anything, and he just, man, you can tell he is in the gym. He's working on.
You can tell, yes.
yes, and the guy can just go, man. I mean, I would put him. I would book him against any top talent in the country, and he would definitely entertain.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That last match with Sam Stackhouse was just amazing.
Oh, I'm in the back, and I'm just kind of going through the mental preparations for my match, and it's like all I hear is just like, this is awesome, this is awesome, and like I just, even for a moment, thought like, gosh, how are we gonna top this? How are we gonna top this? And, it just they man, I tell you what, Sam Stackhouse is. Anybody out there that is listening that hasn't went and watched his stuff, go watch his stuff.
Yeah.
The guy is he's a luchador in a 500-pound man's body.
I could not believe how that guy could move for his size and and his ability. I mean, I was shocked when he came in there. I was like, because I'd never seen him before. I'll be honest. I was like, okay, this is probably going to be 5 minutes. Luke Langley's going to wrap him up like a pretzel.
Now, prior to Mid-States, had you ever heard of Sam Stackhouse? No, you hadn't. Okay. So Sam is actually one of those guys that is considered an indie darling. He went like in the last year, I mean, his stock on the independent scene has just skyrocketed.
Wow.
I mean, I want to say he's a regular at Game Changer Wrestling. I want to say they're going to be at in New York on, New York City in the Hammerstein Ballroom on December 31st or something.
Wow.
I mean, a big event for him.
Yeah.
But I can remember, like who was it? I think Zack Ryder or Matt Cardona, whichever. He's going under Matt Cardona, obviously, but he had wrestled him for one of the Game Changers or one of the other indie feds, and come out and tweeted like, "Look, promoters, if you're not booking Sam Stackhouse, you're missing out." The guy is just he just, for as big as he is, you wouldn't expect him to move like he does.
No.
And he, whether it's a spinning wheel kick or whatever, he is just. He's nothing to mess around with it, and it's kind of like an attraction. You know what I mean? He's such a big guy that is so like agile. It reminds me of like your Big Van Vaders or your your Bam Bam Bigelows.
Or One Man Gang.
Your one man gang, one man gang, crazy, but great kid. I had been, I hadn't worked on a card with Sam for about probably 8 or 10 years. But whenever last time I'd worked with him, he was still a kid. He was still kind of coming up and and doing his thing. But I could tell, like, man, this kid's good for as big as he is. He's really, really, really good. And I'm glad that he is enjoying some of his success. I got to talk to him for a minute at the last show, and I just told him that that it was awesome. He had put a Facebook post or a tweet or something about how that he paid for his car repair bill with his wrestling money, and that was that's a big I mean, like, somebody who's been on the independents can tell you that's that's a big accomplishment. Being able to get that done, and just seeing him being successful is awesome, because at the end of the day, he's just a little Oklahoma boy that's been doing it for a long time.
Yeah, he's really good, and all your guys there at Mid States, just the top talent. I mean, no doubt about it, like you said. So. All right, sir, Mr. Steven Espinoza, thank you for coming on tonight.
Thank you for having me, Brian. Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it, and I appreciate the opportunity to come on and visit with you and your fan base, man.
I appreciate it's great. And folks, we're gonna have all the description if you want to check out Stephen E on his social media. I'll have all those links down there, and Mid States Wrestling and SICW, all of it. We'll have it down there. Folks, if you're watching, thank you. If you're listening, thank you. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. And again, Stephen E., thank you for coming on tonight. Really appreciate it, sir.
No problem. Thank you for having me, Brian.
All right, have a good one.